This is a Biscoff ice cream cheesecake with a Biscoff cookie crust and a decadent white chocolate fudge sauce. So the first thing you want to do is get your cake pan ready. This recipe makes a 7-inch cake, ideally using a spring form cake pan, and you're going to line the bottom of it with parchment paper. And the cake color is optional, but it does help with the ease of taking the cake out. Once that's done, you're going to make your cake crust. So pouring your Biscoff cookies into a blender and finely grinding them like this. Melt your tablespoons of butter and pour it into these finely crushed cookies. Mix all of that up until it's nice and combined, and then you're going to pour this into your cake pan. Spread out your cookie crumbs evenly and then press down to make a nice flat layer. I use a plastic cup. You can use the back of a plastic spatula, just something that's going to flatten out the bottom of the cake crust fully. Once that's done, you're going to place this in the freezer for a few minutes just to let it set. While the cake crust is setting, make the white chocolate fudge sauce. So grabbing a microwave-safe bowl, pour in your white chocolate, your corn syrup, and your vanilla. I didn't get this on video, but on the side, warm up your 3 tablespoons of heavy cream in the microwave, just zapping it for about 20 to 30 seconds, and then pour that warm cream over the white chocolate. Let it sit for about a minute and then start to combine it. And you want to mix it until it's fully melted. You might need to pop this in the microwave for a few seconds to help the chocolate melt fully, but don't put it in for too long. Put it in for maybe a 5-second interval, and then mix and keep putting it in for 5 seconds until the chocolate has fully melted and you get a nice silky white chocolate fudge sauce. Once that's done, you're going to grab your cake pan with the cake crust, pour about half a cup of the white chocolate fudge sauce onto the cake crust, and put the remainder aside. That will be drizzled on top of the cake afterwards. So pouring your white chocolate fudge sauce in the middle of the cake crust and kind of letting it spread out, and you can grab the cake pan like this and kind of move it around. You don't want it to touch the edges because it will stick to the plastic cake collar when you're removing it, so just right close to the sides like this. Once that's done, place a bit of plastic saran wrap on top so that it doesn't freezer burn, and then you're going to place this in the freezer and let it set for about half an hour. While that is setting, you're going to make your ice cream cheesecake. So grabbing your room temperature cream cheese, you're just going to beat it real quick, get a nice smooth texture to it, just so that it doesn't create any lumps in your ice cream cheesecake. Then you're going to add your little bit of yogurt and mix that to combine. You can beat it pretty heavily just to make sure there's no clumps again. Then you want to add in your vanilla and your sweetened condensed milk. And you're going to mix these to combine fully until you get a nice kind of silky, creamy texture. And once that's done, add in your corn syrup. The corn syrup is optional at this point. However, it does help with the ice cream itself. It helps to give that nice ice cream texture. It softens it a little bit so that it's not so hard, and it also helps not freeze or burn the cake. But if you don't want to add in corn syrup, this cake will taste just as good. So you're gonna mix to combine that fully until you get this nice silky texture. Once that's done, you're gonna grab a separate bowl and pour your heavy cream into it, and you're gonna whip it until you get stiff peaks. This is what's gonna help make these ice cream cheesecake fluffier and give it a little bit more air into the mixture. And once you have those nice stiff peaks, you're gonna combine this into your cream cheese mixture. But when you're combining it into the mixture, you wanna make sure that you're doing it in small increments because you don't wanna whip that air out of the cream. So I'm doing it pretty hard here. You want to do it a little bit slower and more gently, just kind of folding it in. It's inevitable that some of the air will get beaten out, but you want to try and keep it as consistent as possible. So just doing it in a big spoonful and gently folding it in one spoonful at a time. And as you can see here, you get this nice, creamy, delicious looking consistency. So this part is a personal choice. If you want to do the layered Biscoff, you're going to grab a separate bowl and pour 2 cups of this cheesecake mixture into that separate bowl. Now for the Biscoff part, I like to use the Biscoff spread that is crunchy, so it gives a little bit of texture in those layers. And you're gonna gently fold that into your 2 cups of this cheesecake mixture. Now you can add the Biscoff mixture to the full cheesecake mixture if you want, but it'll just give you this one, it won't give you the layers basically. And I personally like the look of the layers, so that's why I like to separate it, but it's totally up to you. So you're just gonna gently fold that in. Once that's done, you have your 2 separate mixtures, and you're gonna grab your cake pan from the freezer with the cake crust and the white chocolate that has set, and you're gonna pour about 1 cup of the plain cheesecake mixture for the bottom layer. Just pouring it into the center and letting it kind of spread out. Now you might have to grab the cake pan and kind of spread it out like this, just to get all of the edges, and tapping it to get rid of the air bubbles. And once that first layer is in, grabbing 1 cup of the Biscoff mixture and spreading it over top. And just kind of making a nice even layer. Once that's done, you can add the remaining of the cheesecake, just regular cheesecake mixture on top of that. Spreading it out evenly, getting the edges and the sides. And tapping the bottom to get rid of any air bubbles. And on top of that, you're gonna add your remaining Biscoff mixture on top. And really just setting that out evenly. Now this part is also optional, but I like to add some roughly chopped Biscoff cookies on top. It just really gives that elegant kind of look to this ice cream cheesecake, but it's totally optional. Here I used 4 regular Biscoff cookies, Just chop them roughly and kind of spread it out evenly over top of the cake. Once that's done, grabbing your saran wrap, placing this plastic over top of your cake so that it doesn't freeze or burn, keeping it as fresh as possible, and place this in the fridge for 6 hours or ideally overnight. Now the next morning or the next day, grabbing your cake pan. This is an 8-inch cake pan. Warming up your white chocolate fudge sauce. I like to put some on the bottom so that it keeps the cake kind of stuck, keeps it centered on the cake board. You're gonna remove your springform cake pan, leaving the cake collar on because this is gonna help us get it onto the cake board. But just grabbing it like this and then placing it over top of your melted chocolate and centering it into your cake board. And then from there you can kind of take the plastic cake collar off. And this is what it looks like once you take the cake collar off. With your warmed up remaining white chocolate fudge sauce, you can drizzle this on top, kind of getting it over the edges to give it that nice, beautiful, kind of decadent look. But again, this is personal preference. You can drizzle it however you like. It'll be just as delicious. And once that's done, this cake is ready to serve. You can either serve it right away after drizzling your white chocolate fudge sauce, or put it back in the freezer until you're ready to serve it. Leave it on the counter for maybe 5 minutes and it'll be ready to go.